But like I said, if this is just your opinion, what the hell are we arguing about here? Neither one of us is wrong, and neither one of us is right. I don't care what's true according to some sources. I care about what is true. Opinions are irrelevant to the truth of a claim or proposition. But you know what's really crazy? If you were right and I was wrong, do you know what that would prove? Do you know what that would prove? Do you know what that would prove? Absolutely nothing. It wouldn't prove I'm a liar, it wouldn't prove I'm a fraud, it wouldn't prove I'm a charlatan, and it wouldn't prove I manipulate people.
According to some sources, there's a legitimate appeal to authority and an illegitimate appeal to authority, but some other sources will say just it's invalid to appeal to authority at all.
Wow, like for realsies, I can't even. Can we play that clip one more time?
There's a legitimate appeal to authority and an illegitimate appeal to authority, but some other sources will say just it's invalid to appeal to authority at all.
Did you just say, according to some sources, there is an appeal to a legitimate authority fallacy and an appeal to an illegitimate authority fallacy? So it's a fallacy to appeal to a legitimate authority and an illegitimate authority. Gee, that's kind of redundant. Yeah, it's almost like it's just a fallacy to appeal to an authority at all. I mean, it's not like there's something between legitimate and illegitimate, right? That would violate the law of excluded middle. Huh. I wonder why you didn't think of that. Oh, that's right. Pete does not believe the laws of logic exist. If you get a chance, check out the video he made attempting to debate Matt Dillahunty on the existence of the logical absolutes. It's humorous. So, what are the logical absolutes? Oh, nothing. Just 3 laws that form the foundation of all valid mathematics, sound logic, and rational thought. They are as follows: the law of identity, the law of excluded middle, and the law of non-contradiction. Are they pretty solid laws? Well, you can't prove them to be false without both assuming they are true and then applying them. Especially considering the law of excluded middle states that for every proposition, either that proposition is true or its negation is true. Never both, never neither, and never in the middle. Hence the name, law of excluded middle. Not to mention that by saying the laws of logic do not exist, you also happen to be saying the following proposition: the laws of logic do exist is not true. Therefore, actually applying the law of excluded middle in an attempt to demonstrate the absence of the law of excluded middle. And not agreeing with me would be evidence of the law itself, and to agree with me would just mean you finally learned something. Wow. So, I mean, there you go. Does it mean anything else? Yes, as a matter of fact, it does. It means when attempting to label an individual as an authority, the following proposition, this individual is a legitimate authority, is either true or not true, and those are the only 2 options. And so, I would wonder why there is an appeal to authority fallacy, an appeal to a legitimate authority fallacy, and an appeal to an illegitimate authority fallacy. Oh man, they should just say it's a fallacy to appeal to an authority, period. Oh, wait. They do. Why do you think otherwise? And by that I mean, when you think, why can't you think wisely? LOL, JK, just kidding. Seriously though, where'd you go wrong? Well, it has to do with your many mistaken misunderstandings of what the appeal to a false authority fallacy actually is. You seem to think it's when someone appeals to an authority that you don't deem a sufficient or intelligent enough authority on a specific subject, which can't be the case because arguments stand and fall on their own merits and not the merits of the individual, which is why there are no authorities in science. Because we consider the evidence to be the authority and not the individual, not the one presenting it. For example, the local high school science teacher may not rise to the level of a legitimate authority in your opinion, but a college professor, in your opinion, just might. So you have this idea that if you appeal to someone who is allegedly not educated enough to your standards, it's an appeal to a false authority. And due to this misunderstanding of what appealing to a false authority is, you understandably infer that there then must be an appeal to a legitimate authority fallacy. And in turn, that must mean someone is appealing to someone who is sufficient in their education as an authority. If an appeal to a legitimate authority fallacy is real, then it must be defined as someone who is appealing to someone who is sufficient in their education as an authority. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever you say. Except, no. That is not what an appeal to a false authority fallacy is, and appealing to all authorities is always fallacious, and citing any authority to add strength to your argument is always fine. An appeal to a false authority fallacy is when you cite an authority who is not a main practitioner or student of the academic subject in question. For example, citing Albert Einstein with respect to martial arts claims would be appealing to a false authority, because Albert Einstein is a theoretical physicist and not a martial artist. I don't believe so, at least. It has nothing to do with citing an academic who may not be as knowledgeable as you think they should be. That is a subjective statement and therefore cannot be a fallacy. So if there is anything I just got done saying that you disagree with, what I need you to do is type it out in an email, print it up, put it in an envelope, get a hard copy, use the printed copy, put a stamp on it, make sure it's the hard copy, take it and shove it up your ass. You probably already know. Regarding your academic disagreements with me, I don't really give a flying funny how that works out though. So let's fix this craptacular assertion that you two gummy bears attempted to make. In spite of being surprised before, I'm confident vocally inspired social cues like and are not terms in any logical-based discipline I'm familiar with. Consequently, I hope you take personally when I fix your short comment here. And I'm afraid the first thing that has to go is your rambling. Yes, that's right, Casper. Unlike you, I can respond to what you're saying without making up excuses. Anyways, let's take those out. That's a much better statement. A little less messy, less Weasley. Now let's split it up into the two statements they really are. I can do that because I was at your mom's last night. Oh, calm down. I'm just shaking up your soda. It's because it's a compound statement. There we go. That is a much better statement. Oh yes, let's also put the logical connector in the middle. There we go. Now we have two statements with a logical connector in the middle of the two propositions. I thought you said they were statements. They are, but when that statement makes a claim, that type of statement is known as a proposition. It's referred to as a proposition because it attempts to propose something. Like these two statements here, they both make an attempt to propose an assertion. Therefore, they are both propositions. Alright, now it's all proper and fixed. The only problem is, it's not true. So, first of all, even if these two statements were true, this is ironically called a false exclusionary fallacy. Why is that ironic? If you watch these videos, you will eventually find out. But for now, let's just say my opposition knows why. Secondly, you employed the wrong connector here. Connectives are words meant to demonstrate the relationship between two statements. However, instead of the conjunction but, you should have used the conjunctive adverb however. Or, on the other hand, and thirdly, let's get rid of this appeal to a legitimate authority fallacy and replace it with an appeal to authority fallacy. Now let's remove the illegitimate appeal to authority fallacy and replace it with false authority fallacy. Lastly, instead of inaccurately saying some other sources, it would be more accurate to say virtually the entire scientific and philosophical community would agree it's always a fallacy to appeal to an authority. Alright, and there we go. The logical connector you're using is nonsensical, but if you fix it, it makes it a false exclusionary fallacy. Ironic. There is no such thing as a legitimate authority fallacy. I don't even know what that would even mean. A false authority does not refer to someone who is not as smart as you think they should be. It refers to citing an authority who specializes in a field irrelevant to the topic of discussion. And lastly, it's not just some other sources. It's 99% of the scientific and philosophical community. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get back to the video.
according to some sources, there's a legitimate appeal to authority and an illegitimate appeal to authority. But some other sources will say just it's invalid to appeal to authority at all.
Yeah, those sources have a name. It's called being correct. But you know what's weird? You're claiming that neither one of us is right and neither one of us is wrong, while claiming that I'm wrong. If an appeal to any authority is a fallacy, what does it matter whether it's illegitimate or legitimate? And of course, it's not a fallacy to cite an authority, only to appeal to an authority. It is, however, a fallacy if you cite the wrong authority. But here's something you might find interesting. Science has no authorities. Aside from recognizing that someone is of a certain field, there are no authorities in science. When they use the word authority, they're usually just referring to somebody that's in a specific field. So it's not a fallacy to cite an authority to add strength to your argument, which is what you're about to try to do. It is a fallacy to appeal to an authority, which is what you failed to do. It is always a fallacy to say something is true because an authority said so. So, since it's not a fallacy to simply cite an authority, let me cite a few. Neil deGrasse Tyson, there are no authorities in science. Matt Dillahunty, there are no authorities in science. Carl Sagan, there are no authorities in science. Einstein, you get the point. Maybe this will help you two brain farts. Let's say I want to make a claim, and I would like to appeal to an authority. I'm thinking about whether I want to appeal to a legitimate authority, or whether I want to appeal to an illegitimate authority. Which one do you think I should appeal to? It doesn't matter, because appealing to either of them is a logical fallacy. There you go.
Now, appealing to authority is not the same as citing an authority.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, you guys had to check with each other on that? Thanks for clearing it up. Yeah, you really sound positive. By the way, what the hell is a vanilla appeal to authority? Is it as good as a chocolate appeal to authority? Who knows, it might just be a term I never heard of. Philosophy is a big subject. Does that mean you're wrong until I do hear of it? His first critique was over a word that I used, a term, soundness, which is kind of weird if you study logic because it's almost like a police officer not being familiar with his handgun. And the way that Pete saw it was, he didn't hear of it, therefore it must not exist. And the way that Pete saw it was, he didn't hear of it, therefore it must not exist. But you know what? For about 20 seconds, let's just assume that I'm wrong. Let's just assume that I'm wrong for about 20 seconds here. What does that mean? What does that prove? Absolutely nothing.
But, some other sources will say just, it's invalid to appeal to authority at all. Now, appealing to authority is not the same as citing an authority.
Right.
Okay. But saying that something follows and is true because it was said by an authority would arguably constitute a vanilla appeal to authority. So without hashing all that out.
Yeah, okay. Hey, if you spent the past 5 minutes hashing something out, you don't get to end your stuttering rant by saying, without hashing all that out. However, I do have an awesome idea. How about you stop the bitching and complaining, pull your panties up, and get to the evidence proving why I'm a fraud and a liar. Maybe show us a person I've manipulated. Quote me a lie that I've told. This can go a lot faster.
Saying that something follows and is true because it was said by an authority would arguably constitute a vanilla appeal to authority.
Saying something is true because an authority says so arguably constitutes as a logical fallacy. No. It is a logical fallacy. I don't know why this is so hard to understand. That's the thing about logical fallacies. If there's an exception to the rule, it's not a logical fallacy.
So without hashing all that out, I'm not going to push my opinion here. I'm just saying there's some variety.
Okay, so wait, what? Did you just say you're not here to push your opinion?
I was sort of satirically conveying my opinions regarding. I was sort of satirically conveying my opinions regarding...
You understand that you started out by saying this is all just your opinion, right? That was literally your opening statement, but now you're not here with your opinion. Okay, you just have to hash it out, but you're not going to hash it out. Okay. Good thing you're not contradicting yourself left and right. That would be confusing.
So, without hashing all that out, you know, I'm not going to push my opinion here. I'm just saying there's some variety. And I was sort of taking a side satirically in this post, and so here I'm saying it's important to differentiate between an appeal to legitimate authority and an appeal to illegitimate authority, for the same reasons that it is important to differentiate between the two kinds of ad hominems, the legitimate attack on the arguer and the illegitimate attack on the arguer. So, you know, obviously there's not a legitimate or illegitimate ad hominem.
Not sure what he's talking about? I don't blame you. He's basically saying, quite a few times in a row, this post is just a joke, but it's also his opinion, even though it's just satire, but he's about to defend it as fact. You're a moron.
Then I go on to say, same goes for poisoning the well, just poison the illegitimate wells and avoid poisoning the legit wells.
You know, when you talk like that, it's pretty easy to assume you're joking. You have a sarcastic tone in your voice. Here's the difference, Casper. Your posts don't talk. They don't have a tone of sarcasm. What you're actually doing is manipulating the people's view. You see, when you're reading it like that, you're exaggerating the fact that it is a joke. But you're not reading your Facebook posts to people, genius. They have to read it themselves. You didn't sound like that because you didn't say anything. You didn't speak. You typed. I didn't hear you. I read what you wrote.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm obviously bullshitting now.
Okay, so, according to you, it's obviously just bullshit. Of course, according to you, you're the author. You don't get to decide for everyone else as to what is or is not obvious. And many other people on this post also took it seriously. I just saw a fuck up and decided to respond. But if it was a joke, then what the hell are we arguing about here? What are we talking about here? Is it because you want it to be a joke if you're wrong, and something you want to try to prove true if it's right, but rest on opinion until you find out? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Sounds like that's what it is. Because it sounds like you can't figure out what your position is. You don't get to make an observation about your own intentions and label it as obvious, you idiot. Of course it's obvious. You wrote it.
Yeah, I'm obviously bullshitting now. Our friend Jason Jewell here. Yeah, I'm obviously bullshitting now. Our friend Jason Jewell here. He, you know, the humor went over his head, which, you know, that's not a crime.
I'm not concerned about the possibility of missing a joke. Talking about the fact that I missed a joke proves nothing, except for you're wasting your time with irrelevant topics when you should be proving the actual accusations that you made. So is this your opinion? Is it a joke? Or is it something you're defending as fact? I'm a little confused. You periwinkle maxi pad. And are you planning on showing us all the post where you told me, hey Jason, it was just a joke? Or are you going to show us the post where you start defending your post as a fact? Or are you going to just change the subject?
Keep joking!
But he's saying that's not what an appeal to authority fallacy is. The argument from authority fallacy is when the truth of your claim or the conclusion of your argument is contingent upon an authority figure. Okay. Yeah, that's fine, that's wonderful.
Oh yeah? That's fine, wonderful. Had you not given me that approval, I would have went to my grave wondering whether or not I was right. As if your confirmation adds any confidence at all to my position. At this point, I'd probably lose confidence in something if you did agree with me. But I like how you say, yeah, that's fine. As if in a couple of minutes, you're gonna say, but this is where he really screws up. What's funny though is you say they're supposed to be educational videos, as if in just a few seconds you're about to demonstrate or prove why they're not. But you're not going to, and that's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this entire video. And that's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this entire video. But I like how you say, yeah, that's fine. As if in a couple of minutes you're gonna say, but this is where he really screws up. You're not my instructor. I don't need your grade.
And you know the thing about it is, although I actually agree with this position of his, he's being, in my opinion, too confident on this issue.
Well, congratulations, Casper. You finally used the word opinion correctly. So your only problem with me right now, your only beef with me is that I'm being too confident regarding something you agree with. Okay, I think it's about time I make something perfectly clear with you two penis pimples. I don't give a flying feathered fuck what you think too confident is. Because none of this has anything to do with you accusing me of being a fraud or a liar. Really, the only thing that post contains is the definition of the argument from authority fallacy. The same thing you would find if you looked it up. The definition and a couple of examples. Yes, I'm pretty confident that is a definition of an argument from authority fallacy. As you can see right here. What was it that I said that made you determine I was being too confident? You're not going to show that, are you? I have an idea, Gaston. How about we read what you wrote?
I too like to recite the basics of logic in my spare time, but even that can be done in a succinct way. Sometimes I do it when I'm in the shower. Now here is the appeal to false authority fallacy, aka improper authority, for anyone who is not sure that this is actually a thing.
Okay, couple of things here. Number one, you were the one being sarcastic and ridiculous, not me. Number two, I wasn't reciting the basics of logic. What do you think the basics of logic are? I defined one term. I defined one word, the argument from authority fallacy. So either you also have a really serious problem paying attention, just like P, or you have a serious problem reading, just like P. Or it was you who was being sarcastic. What's the point of you doing this for Pete if you suck at paying attention just as much as he does? Number three, why didn't you just say it was a joke? You know, if you continued to defend it, no joke went over my head. It's just you lying. Number four, and correct me if I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong. So your comment is satire, but more like a joke, but not really because it's your opinion, but not really because you actually agree with me, but you're debating me on it. And apparently you don't know what my point is, because according to you, I was reciting the basics of logic. What the hell would reciting the basics of logic look like? It's not like the alphabet, where everyone has a uniform version.
The thing about it is, although I actually agree with this position of his, he's being, in my opinion, too confident on this issue with the delicate nature of the controversy in informal logic. There's a lot of different opinions.
This is Phase Ed Music.
The delicate nature. The delicate nature of logic. It's an academic subject. It's not a flower petal dipped in nitrogen. There is no controversy. There is no competing view about what an argument from authority fallacy is. Maybe amongst you and your idiot friends, but amongst the general philosophical community, no. And here's the thing, even if there was a controversy about what an argument from authority fallacy was, either one side is wrong or they're both wrong. Otherwise, if it wasn't right or wrong, then it would be a, wait for it, an opinion. That's correct. I know. An opinion is a subjective statement. A subjective statement is an opinion. An objective statement is a statement that is either right or not right. It is either true or not true.
So although I personally agree that all appeal to authority fallacies are fallacious, he's kind of forcefully pushing it here.
Let's add that claim to the box.
Dame la ciencia.
Wait a minute, hold on, and I'm sure this was just an accident, but you forgot the evidence part again. How did you determine that I was forcefully pushing my views or opinions? What's the key difference between forcing your views and stating them? Don't you think that would be an important aspect to go over and point out instead of just making this accusation? There is nothing that I said that indicates I was forcing anything onto anybody. And you don't even make a single attempt to show how I would, or prove that I even did.